Hi, Bruce here again with another video on previewing my books, and I've got blues guitar from scratch. This is the one I'm going to show you, talk about now. And basically blues begins at the level of the 12-bar blues, which has been the style of playing blues for decades and decades, and it involves the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. And I've talked about this in my Guitar from Scratch and the sequel. I just want to go briefly over what that means, and I think we'll stick with one key for right now, the key of A. Okay, and every key has chords that belong to it, and the 1, the 4, and the 5 are the most important chords in any key, and they're major chords. So in the key of A, if you count on your fingers like I do, A, B, C, D is the 4, and G is the 5. So I have an A chord, that's the home chord, it has the gravity, you're going to come back to it a lot, probably the most common chord of the 3. The 4 chord will be D. D is kind of a friendly chord with relation to the A, which is the 1 chord. You hear back and forth, they sort of travel back and forth easily. Then comes the E chord, which is the 5. The 5 has a little more push to it as you go back to the 1. There's a little more expectancy going back to the 1 chord there. So the 4 is friendly, the 5 is a little bit pushy, and the 1 is home. Okay, and this counts for all music, not just blues. In the 12-bar blues, we'll start off with the 1 chord, play a 1, go to the 4, and come back to the 1. Go to the 4 again, then back to the 1, and then comes that 5 chord. It's kind of the peak of the verse or the song is the 5. It might go back to the 4, and eventually comes back to the 1. So what I want to do, instead of using the major chords, because I mean they work and they get used a lot in blues, but it's more likely to hear 7th chords. That's major, pure sound, 7th chord, a little dissonant, a little edgy. Bluesy. D chord, D7, yeah, bluesier, and E, major, pure, 7th, dissonant. So I want to use these chords, just run through the 12 bars so you know what we're talking about. And I'll give you the most kind of common way to arrange these chords. So, and we're talking about page 3 here. I'm going to change, I actually might change it a little bit, make it a little more interesting than what you see on page 3, but it's a good start for you, and we will get to this other more interesting approach a couple pages down the road. So here's what it's going to sound like using A7, D7, and E7. This is just the overview of the 12-bar blues. So, and I'll count the bars out as we go. 1, 2, that's the D7, back to A7, 3, 4, back to D7, 5, 6, back to A, 7, 8, now here comes the E, 9, back to the D7, 10, back to the 1, the A7, and then it's going to wind up with the E7, and the E7, that 5 chord is going to push you back to start the next verse, back to the 1. Okay, now, that does happen, but you're more likely to hear a whittled down approach on each of these chords, and it's pretty easy to do. Let's start with the A chord first, and I guess I want to show you a little bit about scales and things, just so we get an idea what's going on. The A chord, the A note is the root, it's the open 5th string, and if I count up, in the major scale, it's the old do, re, mi. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, what we want to do is to pick out of that the 5, which is part of the backbone of the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5, and alternate it with the 6. And the 6 is the one that's 2 frets higher than the 5. So what you're hearing is this. And this is at the bottom of page 5. So the A chord, the full A chord, is too much. We don't want all that. We just want this little skeletal outline of the chord. We're going to do this with the other 2 chords as well. So the D chord, or D7. In any case, we'll start with the D scale, and you have the D note. Count up the old do, re, mi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the 6. We're going to alternate those two. So it looks just like the A chord material, but it's on the 4th and 3rd string. So we're still doing the index finger on the 2nd fret, 3rd finger on the 4th fret. That's the 5 and the 6 and the 5 and the 6. So for the A chord, here's the 5, 6, 5. That's the first bar. The second bar has the D chord, 5, 6, 5, 6. The next one is back to the A again. Okay, we'll be going back and forth between A and D in the first 8 bars. Finally comes the 5 chord, the E chord. Well, by golly, you go to the 6th string, and the E chord is this. There's the root, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the root in the 5th, and then you go to the 6th. It looks just like the other two. This is great. We love this. So what we actually have, and let's see, I guess I want you to see, yeah, page 6 is where this is really getting underway. You have the A, and when you're playing these 2-note chords, you know, it's really hard to avoid playing more strings. And you're gonna, if you hit them and ring them, they're not gonna sound right. So if I'm doing my A chord, and I'm doing the A5 to A6, and I got this, that's awful. I've got to deaden out any note that comes below the root, which is going to be the 6th string, and I've got to kind of deaden out the next note that comes higher in pitch than the 5th. All I want to hear is these two. So if I can deaden the 6th string, and I can deaden the 3rd string, and maybe even just try to avoid the 2nd and 1st strings, then I can really swing. I don't have to worry about picking up just those 2 notes. I can go, yeah. So that's the A chord. The first bar would be this. For the D chord, everything shifts over. I'm deadening 2 strings now with my thumb. And the E chord, that's the easy one, because you don't have to worry about deadening below, but you have to be careful not to. You just want those 2 notes. Here's how the whole thing sounds, 12-bar blues. That's all in the key of A, and I have lots of examples of how you can vary that, make it more interesting, make it sound bluesier depending on when you change your fingerings. I'll let you see that on your own in the book. The key of E, I also go through the key of E, and that's also useful information. I'll let you look at that. Now there's another thing that is called the blues boogie. Or you know, I want to go back and mention one more thing. After that 5 and 6, why not add the 7? Well, I'll tell you what, it's not regular, it's actually a flatted 7. If you're thinking about the major scale and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, really what we want is a flatted 7th. And I don't explain that in this book, but I explain how all that works in my music principles books, okay? But so why not go 5, 6, 7? That's all shown in here as well. Okay. I wanted to just show you a little bit about this guitar boogie. The guitar, actually, it's based on piano boogie, and there's a definite sound. You'll know it when you hear it. We're going to take it in the key of E, and it's most common here. And back to the major scale, we have do re mi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, the boogie scale just has it's got the 1, it's got the 3, then it's got the 5, 6, and 7. That goes back to what we were talking about before, the 5, 6, and 7. So all we're really adding is the 3. Okay, now change it to the 4 chord, which is A, and that everything shifts directly over. So you have and it goes back to the 1. When you get to the 5 chord, which is B in the key of E, It's usually what people do is they just avoid it. They just move on and play a B7 chord. The notes that you would get would be this. Sorry. It's kind of awkward to get to. Most people would just prefer to play maybe an A7 and then back to the bottom. That's that sound. And then there's lots of little variations of where you would mess with that too. So I think we'll hold that there and move on to blues lead playing, because that forms the context, the background, the chording that you'll now play lead over. Now the interesting thing about this is that it's interesting about the blues. The chordal backing is basically major sounding. Okay? Or the scale that we play is called the pentatonic minor scale. It's really interesting how this works. I'm not sure exactly why it works, but it sounds right. The pentatonic minor scale, what that means, penta is 5. There are 5 different notes in the scale. Now there'll be additional octaves of those notes, but the 5 basic notes of the E minor pentatonic scale are the E, G, A, B, D, and E. Now, I could care less if you memorize the names of those notes. It is important to know what the root notes are. I would say, if you're playing in the key of E minor pentatonic, you got to know where which note up here is an E note. Okay, so in this case, we're going to use the open 6th string. That's our E note, and then just follow this pattern. You have the open and the 3rd. The lower notes of all these paired notes are the open strings. So I get open, and I have the 3rd fret. I'll get it with my 3rd finger. Then I have open, and then 2nd fret, 2nd finger. The next string will be open and 2nd, and then comes open and 2nd. That's nice. You've got a run of 3 0 2 0 2 0 2s. Then the next 2 will be 0 3 and 0 and 3. That's the pattern. Now, it's good to know, as I say, it's good to know which notes of those are the root notes. Okay, so as I go up, I have the 1st note, 2nd note, 3rd note, 4th note, 5th note. That was 5 notes. And then when I get to here, that 6th note, that's another E. So that's not a different note. That's not a new note. We've already had E, G, A, B, and D. We're starting over again with E, G, A, B, D, and another E. So these are the root notes. You have the root note, the open. You have one fret number 2 on the 4th string, and a fret, and then the open 1st string. Those are the E notes. Those are like the tent poles that hold the tent up. You know, you have to know where those are, and then you travel between them. Generally, you'll start on a root note, and when you do a little riff or a lick or something, you want to start on the root note and probably end on it too. Not necessarily, but it's a good place when you're getting started just to think in terms of starting, ending with the root notes. So the examples that I give, see page 25. Not even thinking, just 0 3 0 2 0 2 0 2 0 3 0 3, and do it in reverse. An interesting technique that you can apply is the hammer-on and the pull-off. So if you want to hammer on the way up, and maybe pull off on the way back down. Nice thing to throw in. I would say those probably occupy a quarter to a third of all the notes you're going to play in blues lead, but don't get too hung up on them yet. For now, you want to learn where these notes are, how to find them, and how to go between them. Page 26 has some exercises that sort of get you up. Trying to work on that scale. And then next page 27, it's fine to play the scales over and over through and through, but you've got to start thinking in terms of, that would be like just putting random words together. You need to create phrases out of the words. And so, for example, page 27, you might just take, that's your phrase. Think about that, come back to it, or use it to go from. Yeah, don't get too strung out. Don't get out on the, way out on a limb here. Keep your notes in the neighborhood where you can make sort of a musical statement. Then just looking across to the next one on page 27, you have little individual phrases that you want to deal with. Okay, so this goes through a lot of examples. The next thing that you sort of look at here is another position up the neck. And instead of going those 0-3 things, 0-3-0-3, watch this variation. I get to the third string, that note that I'm holding on the 2 can slide to the 4. It's the same note as the open second string. And then I can get to the next note, which was the 3. And then instead of playing the open, I might get this version of that same note. So I might go something like, so it would be, and finally here, which was the 3, the high note of the scale. The rest of this book is going to give you optional notes to play within this scale. It's going to, the next main move is to go up the neck. We're going to take this scale, just as it is, that's 0-3, 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, 0-3, 0-3, move it to the 5th fret. This will be the A minor pentatonic scale. And we're still thinking about 0 and 3 and 0 and 2 and 0 and 2, even though the frets are really 5 and 7 or 5 and 8. But basically all those notes at the 5th fret are going to be used in each of these pairs of notes on each string. So now we have and we can still throw in that little extension that we did down below. So that looks like this. When I get to the 3rd string, slide on up. So I've got and I can catch a couple extra notes higher. Next step would be to go below and start in a lower position. So you'd have and it goes higher. Really classic moves there. So I think with that start, each of these positions, which are known as box patterns, we're going to add a couple above and this one below, and you'll see how you can travel pretty much the whole neck of the guitar just knowing this special pathway going through the strings. We'll do this all the way through, and then we'll go back to the key of E and show all these different box patterns in the key of E, and you'll have them in E and A, and I think you'll be set in your blues lead playing. I think we're going to hold it there for now, and if you are interested, in the comments below you'll see a website, a place you can go and look at either bricks and mortars or an online dealer to buy these books if you like, and I hope you will. So thank you very much.